Good morning, my readers. Today for Reading Workshop, you're going to need your Reading Interactive Notebook, sticky notes, your pencil, glue stick, and your green resource folder that should still be inside of your anchor binder. Last week, you should have had a parent come to Harvey to pick up your new resources for the next 3 weeks because we will be utilizing those teach pages this week. So from your green folder, you should have received, make sure that you've taken out all of your teach pages that should be reading and place them on the left side for reading teach pages, and all the writing teach pages on the right side. So left is our reading and the right is our writing. So today we're going to be taking out the first sheet that says annotation text symbols. We are continuing on with our reading strategies unit. So once you have your green folder closed, make sure it's still inside of your binder and put your binder back in your basket until you need it a little bit later. We're going to open up to last week's lesson when we were working with our reading strategies of making connections, trying to connect the books that we were reading to an experience that happened in our own life, within a book that we've read in the past, or something that's happening in the world around us. So our page from last week was page 30. That means that today we're going to be turning to the very back of that page and putting page 31. And now we can go back to the table of contents to make sure that we're staying organized and keeping all of our teach pages where they need to be. So as we said, we're still in the middle of our reading strategies unit. So we're inserting the next strategy we're going to use as good readers. And this is called our monitoring for meaning, and more specifically today we're going to learn how to use text annotations. So we'll talk about why we need to be able to annotate our text. And then today's date is 9-8-20. So remember, at this point, if you need to pause the video to finish writing in your table of contents, you may do so, or you can keep it playing to continue on with the lesson. So moving back to page 31, today's teach page is just going to be something we insert that we talk about how we're going to use these symbols as we read a new text, and then we're going to model it with a book from our author study of Chris Van Ellsberg. So go ahead and make sure that you've glued in the frame on the back and crisscrossed. And at the top, we're going to write the title again, Monitoring for Meaning. And then we're going to conclude the title with saying text annotations. And annotations is a fancy word for us to say that we're going to be including these symbols, the symbols that are going to represent something that we notice as a reader. So today, as we read our new book, we are going to be looking at places that we can stop as we read to check for our understanding of what the author is telling us within the story about our characters, about the plot, and the lesson or the theme within the book. So when we read, we're going to be taking special notes of where things that we think might be important. So anytime we encounter a piece of text or an event that has happened that we think might be important to the overall story, that's when we are using our previous reading strategy skill of determining importance. We would want to draw a star or an asterisk on a sticky note. We might even include on our sticky note why we feel that this might be important. Or we might draw a check mark to say that I understand why this event is happening or what's going on between my relationship of my characters. We might underline some key words or vocabulary and details. We might circle unfamiliar words, so words that we might want to look up just so we can have a better understanding of what the author is saying. We might include a question mark to say, well, I'm not really sure what's going on in this point in the story, so I might need to do some other monitoring for meaning strategies such as rereading and some other skills that we'll talk about more in detail tomorrow. We can draw an exclamation mark. Just like in a sentence, we say that with a lot of feeling. We can also say an exclamation mark shows that I'm surprised that my character's acting the way they are, or maybe something has happened within the plot that I was not expecting. And then we can draw this infinity sign. It's like a sideways number 8 to say I've made a connection. And we talked about connections that we could have made with our text last week. So connecting to oneself, to another text, or to the world around us. So today, as I read, we're going to be using one sticky note to track our meaning. So we're going to prepare our sticky note first. So we're going to read the story, The Wretched Stone. So we're going to write the title at the top and underline it so we can remember that these are our notes as we read a new story. And then we're going to be drawing the symbols on the left. So I'm going to just draw myself a column. So draw my symbols on the left, and then I'm going to give some explanation or some deeper insight into why I thought that I needed to use the text symbol that I did at that point in the story. You can also show a page number if it's not a book that you have a printed out text copy of. That way you know where your thinking happened on what page. That way when we start writing in our 4-star stickies, you can have text evidence and be specific where you found those particular notes. So we're going to be reading the story today called The Wretched Stone. As Mrs. Ling's reading, I want you to pay close attention to your symbols, so have your notebook still out. And I want you to try to include 3 symbols, and then why you wanted to include the symbols, the pages that you did. All right, so the story today is called The Wretched Stone. And just a quick little note, remember that we have been doing this author study on books that were written by Chris Van Ellsberg and illustrated by him. And he gives us a little part of a picture that we need to look for each time, which is the dog Fritz. So be a detective, and as I'm reading and you're annotating, keep an eye out for the picture of Fritz. The Wretched Stone. May 8th. We finished bringing supplies aboard early this morning. At midday, we left on the tide and found a fresh breeze just outside the harbor. It is a good omen that our voyage has begun with fair winds and a clear sky. So as a reader, I already noticed that there's a word that I might not be familiar with. So when we look at our annotations, we can look at circling unfamiliar words. So I'm going to, on my sticky note, draw a circle, and then I'm going to say that this is on page 1, and it's the word omen. So I might need to look up what that word means, just to have a better understanding of what the author is trying to say. It is a good omen. Well, what does that mean? What is good about an omen? So I'm going to have to look that up to have a better understanding. May 9th, the first mate, Mr. Howard, has brought together a fine crew. These men are not only good sailors, they are accomplished in other ways. Many read and have borrowed books from my small library. Some play musical instruments, and there are a few good storytellers among them. May 17th, our passage is going well. The usual boredom that comes with many days at sea is not present on this ship. When the members of this clever crew are not on duty, I find them singing and dancing or amusing each other with tales of past adventures. So I'm going to go back to my annotation sticky, and I'm going to look at that there is something important that I think might be happening right now within the way the author is creating the text. So I'm going to draw my star or my asterisk to say that this text is presented as a daily log. So I think that that might be important to my understanding of how this story is being told. So it's being presented as a daily log. I see that they have specific dates, and it's from the perspective of the storyteller or the narrator. So we're going to say narrator is, and then I'm going to put the captain. I'm not 100% sure, but I put a question mark just to give myself an idea, because when I look back at the first page and it says the first mate, Well, he's talking about other officers. So someone who might be in charge could be considered the captain of this particular ship. So far, as a reader, I've circled a word that I think I need to look up to have a better understanding of their vocabulary. And then I think this might be important to the overall telling of the story, how the story or the text has been set up by the author, and then who the narrator is. So as we're reading, you can continue to make your annotating symbols and to give some sort of explanation of why you think that was a place to stop as a reader. June 5th, land ho. Slightly before sunset, we spotted an island. I have consulted my charts, but do not see it recorded. This is odd, since ships have sailed through these waters for years. Apparently, they have all missed this small place. We are low on water and would be happy to find fresh fruit growing here. Tomorrow, I will take some men ashore and look about. June 6th. I have just returned from the island. It is strange indeed. The vegetation is lush, but not a single plant bears fruit. The air has an odor that at first seems sweet and pleasant, then becomes an overpowering stink. I saw no sign of life, animal life, not even an insect. We found a spring that had water too bitter to drink. We also discovered that something quite extraordinary, which I have brought aboard. So as a reader, I'm listening to the details the author is giving us about how there is an unpleasant stink, an overpowering stink that's on the island. There's no signs of animal life. So when I look back at some possible symbols, I might say, well, I'm not really sure what's going on here. So I might put a question mark on this page. So if I put a question mark, I can even record the date, since we know this is a daily log, as a reminder that I can come back to this page later. So June 6th, we can say the odor, comma, no life, water was undrinkable. So for this particular one, I just made myself some notes to remember why I was questioning this part of the text. So when they were saying the odor, the no life, and water was undrinkable, I'm wondering what was going on. Was there a reason why the author's mentioning all of these things that we wouldn't have assumed would have occurred on an island? So we're going to continue to read, and you can use the back of your sticky note to continue making your annotation symbols, and then you can record why you've written the things you have. It is a rock, approximately 2 feet across. It is roughly textured gray in color, but a portion of it is as flat and smooth as glass. From this surface comes a glowing light that is quite beautiful and pleasing to look at. The thing is unbelievably heavy, requiring 6 strong men to lift it. With great effort, we were able to get it aboard and into the forward hold. We have set sail and are underway again. June 10th. The crew is fascinated by the rock. When not needed on deck, they are down below gazing in silence at the peculiar light it gives off. I miss the music and storytelling that had become part of our ship's life. The last few days have passed quite slowly. The men, however, seemed perfectly content. I am sure their interest in the stone will fade away soon. June 13th. Something is wrong with the crew. They rarely speak, and though they swing through the rigging more quickly than ever, they walk the decks in a clumsy, stooped-over fashion. Last night I heard shrieks coming from the forward hold. I believe they have contracted some kind of fever that came on aboard with the stone. I told Mr. Howard that tomorrow I will have the thing thrown overboard. June 14th. This morning I awoke to find the deck deserted. The wheel was tied steady with a rope. I believe Mr. Howard, who spent some time around the rock, told the men about my plan to get rid of it. They have now locked themselves in the forward hold. They apparently believe in their feverish state that I can sail this boat alone while they sit around that wretched stone. June 15th, we are in grave danger. A powerful storm is headed this way. All morning long, the wind has grown steadily stronger. The sky is filled with dark clouds. I am unable to shorten the sails by myself. With this much canvas up, we will surely be blown over and sink when the full force of the storm arrives. I am going forward again to try to get the crew to work. All our lives depend on it. This is, I am sure, my last entry. What I have just seen is so horrifying, I barely have the strength to write it down. After I pounded at the door to the forward hold, it finally swung open. But it was not a man who opened the door. It was an ape. The whole crew has turned into hairy beasts. They just sat there grinning at that terrible rock. They don't understand a word I say. We are doomed. This would be a great place for us to stop and on the back of your sticky to record a text annotation to show what you are feeling as a reader reading this last entry from the captain. Looking at the illustration to give you insight about what you think might be going on. Are you surprised by the author's words or what's happening in the illustration? Or are you having more questions? June 16th. The storm has passed. The Rita Ann is still afloat, but both masts and rudder are lost. The stone has gone dark. We were struck by lightning twice during the storm. I believe that was the cause. Unfortunately, the crew is unchanged. They are still beasts, but seem sad and lost without the glowing rock. I have moved them back to their quarters. We have food for 2 weeks. I am hopeful for a rescue. June 19th, I have made an encouraging discovery. I am playing the violin and reading to the crew. It is having a positive effect. They are walking upright and have an alert look in their eyes. June 24th, I was in the forward hold today. A dull glow was coming from the stone. I have covered it and will keep the compartment locked. You might want to, on your sticky note, make note of why do you think there was an encouraging discovery when he was playing the violin? How was that a positive effect to correct the way that they were walking and make them more alert and not so unfocused and gazing at a stone? But why do you also think there's now a dull glow coming from the stone once again? June 28th. I am happy to report that the men have returned to normal. It seems that those who knew how to read recovered most quickly. June 30th. We are saved. A ship has been spotted off our starboard side. I have decided to scuttle the Rita Ann. There is only one place for the wretched stone. Before we abandon ship, I will set a fire that will send this vessel and her cargo to the bottom of the sea. July 12th. Our rescuers have left us in the harbor town of Santa Pango. One by one, the crew should be able to sign on to ships passing through and work their way home. We have made an agreement not to talk about the strange events that took place aboard the Rita Ann. The men appear to have recovered completely, though some show an unnatural appetite for the fruit that is available here. On your sticky note, you might make an inference or a prediction of why you think the men are suddenly acting more like their normal selves. Is it the distance from the stone? Is it being off the island? Tell us why you think so. The end. You are going to put your sticky note that you have just created as you were reading, the 3 that were modeled by Mrs. Lang, and then any extras that you've had during our story. Please put that right underneath the title for today's lesson. And the last thing that you're going to do today, as you're doing your 20 minutes on Epic, you're going to fill out your second sticky. This is for your independent work. So we're going to put IW for independent work. You are going to tell me the title of your story that you're reading on Epic for your 20 minutes. And I want you to do the same type of work. I want you to come up with 3 text symbols that you have decided were important to mark on your sticky note as you read, and then I want an explanation of why you use them. So today you're reading for 20 minutes on Epic. Find 3 symbols that you feel are important as you read that independent book. Tell me the title of your book and an explanation why. Then take a picture of today's teach page and submit it with your assignment.